Right now, while you're watching this, you are living inside a system that you cannot escape and you have not realized it. But the craziest part? This global cage was warned about 1,400 years ago. Prophet Muhammad warned us of a time when interest, the one thing Allah declared war against, would become so widespread that even if you tried to avoid it, the dust of it would reach you. Today, that dust is a global reality worth trillions. It's called the petrodollar. To understand the trap, we have to go back to 1944. While most of the world lay in ruins after World War II, the United States emerged with its economy and manufacturing base completely intact. This led to the Bretton Woods Conference, where nations agreed to a new world order. The US dollar was made the center of the global financial system, with a solemn promise: any country could exchange their dollars for physical gold. Because of this gold backing, the entire world tied their currencies to the dollar. But in 1971, that promise was broken. President Nixon decoupled the dollar from gold. Suddenly, the world was running on fiat currency, money backed by nothing but trust. But how do you maintain trust in a piece of paper? You tie it to the one thing the world cannot live without: energy. The turning point came in 1973 during the Yom Kippur War. Arab oil-producing countries used their oil as weapon, halting sales to nations supporting Israel, including the US. But oil prices quadrupled, inflation skyrocketed, and Western economies nearly collapsed. Seeing how oil could bring a superpower to its knees, the US made a historic move. They struck a deal with Saudi Arabia, the giant of the oil world. The terms were simple: Saudi Arabia would sell its oil strictly in US dollars. Because Saudi Arabia led the way, the rest of OPEC had to follow. From that moment on, if you wanted to buy energy, you had to have US dollars. This created a permanent global demand that gives the US a superpower advantage. It allows them to borrow money at lower interest rates and use the banking system to impose sanctions on any nation that steps out of line. This is exactly where the Prophet's peace be upon him words become chillingly accurate. He said, "A time will come upon people when they will consume Riba." They said, "Is that all of the people?" He replied, "Whoever does not take from it will still be afflicted by its dust." Now look at your life. You might stay away from interest-based banks, but because the petrodollar forces every nation to hold dollars and participate in an interest-based debt system just to buy oil, you are breathing the dust. Every plastic product, every bag of fertilizer, every flight you take is coated in the Riba debt of the US dollar. So now we are all in a global Riba system. This explains the second prophecy. Why is it that the Muslim world, which sits on 30% of the world's energy, is so powerless to stop oppression? The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The nations will soon invite one another to devour you, just as diners are invited to a dish." He said the Muslims would be many, but they would be like weightless foam on a river. This weightlessness is the petrodollar trap. Because the wealth of the Muslim world is recycled back into Western banks and assets, their hands are tied. If they break the system, their own wealth vanishes. This is why we see leaders who claim to be peacemakers, while the Prophet warned of those who would misguide and deceive. But in 2026, we are seeing the greatest challenge to the petrodollar in history. Countries like Russia, China, and the BRICS nations are trying to break the loop. They are trading oil in yuan. They are hoarding gold at record levels. But as the Prophet, peace be upon him, foretold, as the markets become closer to one another, the instability spreads faster. When the petrodollar shakes, the whole world feels the tremor. We are seeing the result of what happens when the Ummah relies on a system of interest for protection instead of the one who created the heavens and the earth.